would you mind talking about, I'm guessing it's your greatest failure. I've heard, I've heard just like a little bit of it. So when you confirmed that you're going to talk today, I was like, oh, I can't wait to dig in, like, how that really went down and kind of the nuts and bolts of
the 2018 trade.
Yep.
So in early 2018, I got into a position for long-term. I typically play long-term options trades anywhere from a year to 2 years out. If you look across my investment portfolio, it looks a lot like institutional setups. And so at the same time, there were rumblings earlier that year where I was kind of like interested in, for the first time, my firm leading a round of funding instead of just, really sitting back and being one of the firms that's like, okay, hey, well, we take part in it and we have a small piece. I really wanted to lead a round of funding. And, there was that. And then I ended up getting an opportunity that landed upon my lap in, I think, around June. So fast forward from January to June, I'm already in this significant Apple trade. That's it's a nice sizable part of my portfolio. And, I was very bullish on Apple. And, of course, at the same token, economic factors were, of course, the rumblings of potential trade war, as well as yield curve inversion from, were we in the possible beginning stages of a potential recession 12 to 18 months out. So there were those rumblings that were happening. And then, like I said, in June, a deal fell upon my lap where it was just like, oh, this could be the first time that we invest in a startup and we're the lead investors of the round. And it was a lot of hand-holding during that process. And come towards the end of the year, so the deal started where it's just we were just getting to know the entrepreneurs. The deal flow didn't start until really around I'd like to say mid-September, late September, where we started like literally rounding up the other investors because we felt like, okay, hey, there was enough performance that had been completed from the startup to literally say, okay, hey, this would be a sizable round to partake in. And to get other investors on board. All the while, now I'm in like full-fledged like lead investor role, like trying to get round of other investors. So I literally completely just like ignore my portfolio. I'm like, my portfolio is going to be fine, whatever, whatever. So then I go and focus on closing this round, and the round ends up closing in, I like to say, early December. So mind you, I haven't given any attention to my portfolio from really mid-September to like the first few weeks of December. So by this time, the Apple position had completely gone from positive for the year to like literally negative for the year, or like at flat. I think it fell to zero. My options trade literally had me lose 98%. So that was an $18.2 million loss that my portfolio took as a hit, which hurt, which greatly hurt.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I look at it in the sense now, it's always interesting. I always say, like, you never truly know exactly how bad everything is, or really, how much things hurt until like you look at it years later on down the road. And now I can kind of just laugh at it and just be like, oh, well, I'm good. But it definitely had some PTSD there, where it sent me back to feeling like that freshman in college that made that great trade because I was up significantly. And then given the implied volatility and everything else that hit, it just sent my portfolio crashing. And so, it just took me back to freshman year, Tuskegee University, where it's just like, oh crap, like, okay, we're back here now.
So that pretty was a reset, had to start over at that point?
It was a slight reset. I mean, luckily I had some other positions that were definitely going. And then on top of that, I had X amount of cash still sitting on the sideline because, smart move was, since I won't be able to really make any strong investment decisions because honestly, I can't really dedicate that much time. I really just sat with a lot of capital on the sideline. But then when I saw that in early December, it allowed me to really start to strategize for the next coming year. And anybody remembers 2019 was one of the greatest bull market years that we saw, one of the greatest runs. And it was just me just strategizing and saying, okay, who are going to be the winning players that year? And I just felt like my thesis was still going to be the same across the board. And pretty much the $18 million loss was just an afterthought, I think 4 months later.
So take us through like the mindset of that when people go up against a failure like that, or it just like pretty much shakes you to your core. How did you kind of reset yourself and be like, you know what, I can get through this. I know I can do it. It obviously didn't ruin you. Like, what was the thought there? Like, what were those couple of days right afterwards like?
Yeah, the first day just sucked. There's no other way to put it. It just sucked. And then having to like, possibly like walk around and my wife is just like, yo, what's going on? You're all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And it's kind of like takes you back to entrepreneurial days where it's like you can have all these massive sirens blaring off in your head, but nobody can hear about it. Just like kind of like what we entrepreneurs go through, like, everybody you're like completely nervous and everything else, or just upset, but yet, everybody else in your team, you can't show that to them because that just brings down morale. And that was the first thing that was going on through my head. I was like, wow, I can't really tell my wife how I really, really feel, because that would just be all types of bad. And so it was the first day, it was just like a very somber moment. It was just a very somber moment for the portfolio. The next day, it was just, honestly, okay, going back to like, okay, hey, well, what did I miss? Because obviously I wasn't here, really focusing on the portfolio. So of course, that's already the first red flag. And then the second red flag was, what are some of the indicators that, that I was hearing about that I just didn't choose to act upon, and that for me was huge. Like just going back and just looking at failures and seeing exactly like, you learn. A lot of folks say that you learn from your successes. I strongly believe you learn more from your failures. And then ultimately, how is it that you react from that learning process of those failures? Then I think that's what pretty much puts you on that pathway towards becoming legendary. And so it was just literally sitting down and saying, okay, hey, well, how is it that I could have done this better? Well, now that I know how to do this, now that I know what I could have done better, what can I do moving forward in the future to prepare my portfolio to not only recoup what I've lost, but also to put me in a better position to, go on this trajectory to still be profitable. And that was just really within a matter of like really 4 days.